Thank you for clicking in this video. In this gripping tale of survival, trust is shattered, fear takes hold, and escaping the shadows may be the only way to stay alive.
The waves crashed violently against the jagged rocks that lined the shore, each thunderous impact sending a spray of salt water into the air. The sky was a blanket of thick, dark clouds that seemed to press down on the island, smothering it in a shroud of despair. The only light came from the occasional flash of lightning that illuminated the twisted, gnarled trees of the jungle. It was as if the island itself was a living, breathing entity, a malevolent force that was hell-bent on ensuring that no one who set foot on it ever left. My name is Julio, and this is the story of how I ended up in this godforsaken place, fighting for my life against forces I could never have imagined. The mission was supposed to be routine, just another day at the office for a seasoned soldier like me. My team and I had been dispatched to this remote island in the Pacific to retrieve sensitive data from an abandoned research facility. The briefing had been brief, too brief. We were told that the facility had gone dark and that all communication had ceased abruptly. Our orders were simple: get in, retrieve the data, and get out. What we weren't told was why the facility had gone dark, or what exactly had been going on there. In hindsight, I suppose it didn't matter. Nothing could have prepared us for what we were about to face. As our helicopter approached the island, the first thing I noticed was how isolated it was. There was nothing but endless ocean as far as the eye could see, with the island sitting alone in the middle like a forgotten relic. The jungle was dense, a thick canopy of trees that seemed to absorb all sound. Even the birds were silent, as if they too sensed the danger that lurked below. As we touched down on the small landing pad near the facility, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. The facility itself was massive, a sprawling complex of concrete and steel that had clearly seen better days. The walls were covered in moss and vines, and the air was thick with the smell of decay. As we approached the entrance, we could see that the gate had been torn apart, twisted metal hanging limply from its hinges. It was clear that whatever had done this had immense strength. My team exchanged uneasy glances, but we pressed on. We had a job to do. Inside, the facility was a labyrinth of dark, narrow hallways and empty rooms. The power was out, and the only light came from the flickering emergency lights that cast eerie shadows on the walls. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional creak or groan of the building settling. As we moved deeper into the facility, the smell of decay grew stronger, and we began to see signs of a struggle: overturned furniture, broken glass, and bloodstains on the floor. But there were no bodies, no signs of what had happened to the people who had worked here. We split into teams, searching the complex for any signs of life or the data we were sent to retrieve. My team, consisting of myself, Miguel, and 2 others, made our way to the main lab. It was there that we found the first bodies, or rather, what was left of them. The scientists had been ripped apart, their remains scattered across the floor. The sight was enough to make even the most hardened soldier sick to his stomach. But it wasn't just the sight that was disturbing. It was the way they had been killed. Their bodies had been mutilated, torn apart with a savagery that was almost inhuman. As we searched the lab, we found a series of cages along one wall. Most of them were empty, but a few still contained what remained of the test subjects. Once human, now twisted into grotesque abominations. Their eyes, once filled with the spark of life, were now dull and lifeless. They had been transformed into something monstrous, something that defied comprehension. The sight of them sent a chill down my spine, and I could see the fear in the eyes of my teammates as well. Then we heard it, a low growl, barely audible over the hum of the emergency lights. We froze, weapons at the ready, scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. But there was nothing, just the oppressive silence of the facility. We continued our search, but the sense of dread only grew stronger with each passing moment. It was as if the very walls were closing in on us, suffocating us with their silence. And then, without warning, all hell broke loose. Miguel was the first to go. One moment he was standing next to me, and the next he was gone, pulled into the darkness with a scream that echoed through the empty halls. We opened fire, but it was too late. He was gone, and there was nothing we could do. Panic set in as we realized that we were not alone. Something was hunting us, something that moved with a speed and precision that was almost unnatural. We ran, desperate to escape the facility, but the exits had been sealed. The island was in lockdown and there was no way out. The realization hit us like a ton of bricks. We were trapped. One by one, my teammates fell, taken by the shadows that lurked in every corner. It was only a matter of time before they came for me. I barricaded myself in a small control room, the only place I could find that had a working door. My heart was pounding in my chest, my hands shaking as I frantically searched for a way to deactivate the lockdown. The control panel in front of me was a mess of buttons and switches, none of which seemed to make any sense. But then I saw it, a small screen displaying a series of security logs. My curiosity got the better of me, and I began to read. What I found made my blood run cold. The facility had been conducting experiments on a virus designed to enhance the abilities of soldiers. The idea was simple: create a virus that could increase physical and mental capabilities, making soldiers stronger, faster, and more intelligent. But something had gone wrong, terribly wrong. The virus had mutated, and instead of enhancing the soldiers, it had transformed them into something else. Something primal, something that no longer had any semblance of humanity. But that wasn't the worst of it. The virus hadn't mutated on its own. It had been tampered with, altered by someone within the facility. It was deliberate, a calculated act of sabotage. The person responsible had wanted this to happen, had wanted to create these monsters. And now they were watching, waiting to see who would survive their twisted experiment. I felt a cold sweat break out across my forehead as I realized the full extent of what had happened. We were never meant to survive this mission. We were just pawns in a game, expendable assets in a twisted experiment. And the people responsible were watching, waiting to see how it would all play out. With shaking hands, I activated the facility's self-destruct sequence. It was the only way to ensure that the virus wouldn't spread beyond the island, the only way to stop these creatures from escaping. But even as I did so, I knew it was too late. They were already here. The door behind me burst open with a deafening crash, and I spun around, my weapon raised. But it was no use. They were too fast, too strong. I fought with everything I had. But in the end, it wasn't enough. They overpowered me, their sheer strength and speed overwhelming me in an instant. As I lay on the cold, hard floor, gasping for breath, I saw a figure step into the room. It was the lead scientist, the one who had briefed us before the mission. He looked down at me with a cold, detached expression, as if I were nothing more than an insect to be crushed beneath his heel. "You've done well, Julio," he said, his voice calm and measured. "You've provided us with invaluable data. The experiment is almost complete." I could barely process what he was saying, my mind reeling from the pain and the fear. But then, as the darkness closed in around me, he said something that made my blood run cold. "But don't worry, you'll be the first to know the results." And then everything went black. I woke up to the sound of waves crashing against the shore. I was lying on the beach, my body battered and bruised, but somehow alive. I had no idea how I had gotten there, no memory of what had happened after the scientist's words. All I knew was that I was alive, and that the island was still out there, waiting. I stumbled to my feet, my body protesting with every movement. The sun was just beginning to rise. casting a pale, golden light over the ocean. But even as I stood there, taking in the beauty of the scene, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that hung over me like a dark cloud. I knew that I had to get off the island, had to find a way to escape before it was too late. But even as I began to make my way inland, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me, something that was waiting for the right moment to strike. I knew then that the nightmare was far from over.
If you want to watch another story, there is another video appearing on your screen now. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more spine-chilling stories.